I'd like to call this meeting to order and welcome you all here. Would you please stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance with me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much for coming out on a beautiful summer evening. It looks like we have a lot of special guests, and I'm looking forward to hearing from every one of you. So, the first thing, what we're going to do is have commission reports, and I believe this would be the Simpson Roundhouse that we're going to talk about first, correct? Mr. Goins? Sounds good. Seems like that's what you're first on the agenda, so.
Let me get my papers out here. Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Wanted to provide a follow-up to the discussion and presentation about the This is the same information as described an optional process, a number of decisions and milestones that the city would need to, I guess, facilitate as part of moving forward with a plan. There would be a feasibility and testing that would occur, analysis, and I'll detail in a minute. We talked about three general strategies. One was really recognizing, I guess, we didn't have the resources or the energy to take this on at this time, but rather than miss an opportunity later to follow the facility, do on the national. The second strategy would be to focus on a museum at that facility, and there's a number of steps that would be involved in that, and again, I can describe those in more detail shortly, but the report that was provided gave some detail to these steps along with, I know this is kind of hard to read, it's a lot of text in here, but the numbers are provided in there in terms of range of costs for these different elements. The third strategy was a public-private partnership, which could include a hotel conference center, maybe some other types of facilities, a larger attraction for generating, I guess, more expansive development downtown. That may include relocating the Tolly in that location. And either one of those strategies could include excursion trains leaving the area for various destinations. This graphic basically provides some overview of the surrounding area, and what I added on the side here are some of the basic pros and cons specific to the location. The legend describes some of these things, but just to kind of run them down, that oddly shaped yellow boundary at the top identifies one of the historic districts, which is just north of the site. The blue rectangle is an area that was identified in the Downtown Vision Plan for an arts district. So you have two areas that have been identified for their historic significance or for some other regional benefit nearby. The pointer doesn't work, but you can see on sort of in the lower right quadrant, there's a parcel there. It sort of has a rounded edge to it. That's the actual parcel that's been created that contains the roundhouse. In fact, that back side, that rounded edge, is the back side of the roundhouse, and you can kind of see the outline of the roundhouse in white there in the image. That parcel extends into what is a private road at that point out in the street, but it's a pretty small, pretty tightly constrained parcel. Those blue and red shapes to the west of that are areas that have been identified in different plans as potential development sites, whether they're redevelopment or they're undeveloped sites that could be part of a future larger strategy. In the pros, I listed the proximity of the site to downtown. It's obviously walking distance, also walking distance to other historic buildings that someone they're coming down to look at something historic might want to see. It's also one block off the state highway. It's just one block from First Street there. Under the cons, I listed the small size of the parcel. the parcel is very constrained in terms of what else can go on it in its current configuration. It has a rail line bisecting it, a private road to the west, creek to the south, and then the building itself is butted up against what's the rear property line. The site has very limited access. This diagram provided 3 options for access, and that may not be the only ones there are, but there was option to bring traffic through the Railroad Avenue gate through some sort of security clearance checkpoint, and then south through the mill site into the area. Obviously, it's problematic because you're going through some mill operations there. The second option would be a pedestrian crossing in about the location there is one now, where the safety alley access was located. That's an at-grade pedestrian crossing just north of Goldsboro Creek. The third access point was further down to the south, and you can kind of make out that dashed line there. Along the southerly limits of this diagram, then turns north and goes up through what was some old rail access and layout yard across a bridge that's currently crossing Goldsboro Creek and into the site. That bridge is being utilized by SPI as their proposed mill access for logging trucks. So that's a serious concern. I listed as a pro and a con the proximity to the mill activities. I think it would depend on who you ask whether that's a pro or con. Some folks might believe that having maybe access to some sort of viewing station where mill activities could be viewed, or having that discussed as part of modern logging activities, might enhance the attraction. Others might cite that as a concern for safety or other things, because obviously it's an operating mill and there's trucks moving around, there's lots of heavy equipment, so it could be a problem in that regard. This is more of a site-specific diagram, and this shows, you can see the detail on that parcel now, where the turntable is, the roundhouse itself. That blue structure to the west is what was the substation for the mill. That will no longer be operational. SPI has already done a number of improvements that would replace that. It shows the location of the mechanic shop and some other facilities, including a former car repair facility. So this gives you a flavor of what's around it, and including some of the rail lines, particularly the rail lines directly west. Burlington Northern and the Navy operate rails in that vicinity. I think there's also a Puget Sound Pacific rail in that vicinity. This graphic shows some of the optional excursion destinations. There's been a lot of discussion about having that as an enhancement as part of what would be an attraction here. What I've listed here is, I think, 3 potential destinations for excursions. The rail line that's currently the Simpson line, the sort of the reddish line there, shows historically where those lines ran. Some of those tracks are still in place. The track that goes out to the Dayton Mill is still in the ground. This would require some retention and maintenance of that Simpson Railroad to provide access to the Dayton Mill site. From there, there might be opportunities to go to Vance Creek, the High Steel Bridge, or other locations in the area could offer some tourist destinations for those kind of attractions. A second option might be the Little Creek Casino. That would take that that spur line that Burlington Northern operates down kind of south and southwesterly there. That might be, in terms of a track, the track that's probably in the best condition might be the easiest one to facilitate that kind of excursion. Another option might be a destination in the Kitsap County, taking you to Bremerton or Silverdale, and that would be on the Navy Railroad line. So in summary, and again, the report gives several pages to say what I'm saying on one little slide here. Strategy 1 would be just to identify this as something we'll put out for the future, to mothball the facility, and to nominate it for the National Register and get those elements in place to allow you some time to maybe gather some resources and funding. Strategy 2 was identified as a rail museum. This could potentially incorporate an excursion train. This could incorporate a working or a static exhibit. The working exhibit is something that's sort of, I think, seen as an exciting opportunity. I think that's an emerging element in the museum world that could be very interesting and unique here. The third strategy would be a more broad partnership that would include a logging museum. It could include a hotel and conference center, starting to attract other types of activities into the area. These types of developments often are part of a infill development. We were trying to bring residential into your area as well. Other types of ancillary uses would develop around it, and potentially this could be a location for the Tolly. We've been looking for a while for a location to put the Tolly under cover. This could solve that problem. Or you could eventually have a recommendation that sort of incorporates bits and pieces of these different elements. So that's not necessarily a either or. I wanted to describe some of the next steps, and I think I should also include some of the other broader assets and I guess constraints that are part of this activity. And I'll just try to be brief with those. Obviously, this type of facility is going to draw a lot of tourism. We are experiencing an upswing in tourism in Mason County. It'd be nice to have something that's really focused on Shelton and bringing people into town. This would obviously do that. There is a lot of community support for this type of opportunity, and to build on that would be, I think, something that I would consider an asset. There seems to be a lot of support at a more regional level. Tim Sheldon has expressed his interest in willingness to support this effort. The Vance Creek Bridge is something that I think already is an attraction, whether we like it or not, and we could maybe control and enhance what's happening out there in a positive way. There is a great deal of rolling stock that's part of what Simpson has sold as part of the transition with SPI. And having a partnership with Simpson and SPI would be critical, but having access to that rolling stock would give this a big boost. And the idea of this being in proximity to a working mill could be considered an asset again. Some people may not feel that way, but some people might believe it is. I think there's a number of railroad buffs, other volunteers that I think are capable and ready to help in this endeavor. Some of that help may be getting their hands on this rolling stock and doing some maintenance on it early on while other pieces of this are coming together. There's not a lot of museums quite like what this could be in the area, and having that unique ability might be something that we'd want to promote. We're nearby Seattle, Bellevue, Tacoma. There's a pretty fair number of people that live on this west side that we would be tapping into. And there's a fair amount of funding opportunities. Given time, we could try to tap into those. But as I mentioned, some of the constraints include the site issues, particularly parking and accessibility to the site. It's very constrained. It could potentially be a safety issue depending on how mill operations are occurring there. To have an excursion train operating can be a very expensive endeavor. This whole thing can be a very expensive endeavor. So that's something that's not to be taken lightly. So just kind of beware that that's certainly a consideration you want to think about and work through. There are ways to do that. Other people have been successful in making that model work. We believe that there's generally a lack of these kind of amenities in the region, and bolstering tourism is something I think we're trying to focus on. A number of folks that were interviewed for the report identified the limitations that the city has. We're struggling to provide basic services here, and to take on something of this magnitude might be biting off a lot for the city. But if we were able to coordinate this with other partners, with the county, Historical Society, and others, that partnership, which might include a development authority eventually doing some sort of operation. Maybe the Port of Shelton gets involved. As you add partners, it becomes more viable. I guess in closing, what I wanted to do was just bring this back out in the forefront and start this public discussion. I think there's a lot of interest in this. There's a lot of people here that probably will have a lot more to say about it. But getting some initial first steps identified and moving this forward, I think, is the next step. So unless you have any questions for me, I'll allow the public to come up here now.
Questions for Steve?
Yeah, I don't have any questions for Steve. I am interested in, do you want comments before the public speaks, or how do you want to do that?
I'm looking at the agenda here, and it looks like this is just pretty much information gathering tonight, and I will make a statement that I think it has potential to be a phenomenal thing. But I think just off the top of my head, and I've thought about this for a while, is if you had a group that could spearhead a grassroots movement, okay, and kept hitting at it, and maybe start with the mothball experience, and then start fixing up this, and then start adding this, and just keep hit, and they have to be committed for years, 5 or 10 years. Things can happen. There's 2 incidences in what I've seen around here that have happened by people getting behind something and just continuing to not give up, raising money, fighting for something. And that's, I won't name names, but there's a gentleman who actually restored some very large visual historical monuments, and he restored them all himself, and he drags them around on trailers, and he's kept a part of Shelton's heritage that I remember from being a little kid and seeing some of these big visual monuments, and he did it like all himself, and he accomplished having these large things that need to be fixed up and taken care of and hauled, and he did that by passionately going for it. There's another gentleman who 10, 15 years ago I met who talked about a dream about having a church in Union. The guy never gave up. And last week or 2 weeks ago, they're doing groundbreaking on a church, a brand new church in Union, but he stuck with it and kept hammering at it for 10 years. So this, I also don't think this would be a commission or even the administration of Shelton. Our main focus could be to facilitate, work with, help with grant writing, and to help the vision, but it would have to be a volunteer movement, and it would have to be real big, and I don't think anything's impossible if you got the people that are really willing to commit themselves to a long-term project. So that's just my ramble about it, but I'm not against doing first, like the mothball phase. I'm not against that. Funding obviously is number one in the world on that. So I don't know where you want to go with this. Would you like to just have everybody come up and speak in favor of what you're doing?
I think you're correct. I think most of the folks would want to speak during the general comment period, but I think they anticipated being able to speak tonight about this item.
I have a comment.
Okay, Kathy?
Another grassroots project, two grassroots projects, small and large. Small was the dog park. That started with a group of people that wanted a good dog park for 4 or 5 years. We got together, have a dog park. Bigger one is the Shelton Pool. We had people that fought for that pool, raised $125,000, I think, something like that, to keep the pool open, and now that group has gotten bigger and is working on a recreation center for Shelton. So that's what people can do when they put their minds to it. It may take a while, but it can get done.
You bet.
Okay, and I guess I will speak now. I will look forward to the public comments, and I want to thank all of the railroad enthusiasts for being here. I am so appreciative, and many of you have already helped on projects such as getting as much as we could out of the dispatch building, and I'm very appreciative of that. I know some of you have those items stored in various places, and your expertise and your advice to me has been invaluable, so I do thank you for that. And as a private citizen, even if I were not a commissioner, I would be very much involved in this. I believe that it's essential, absolutely essential, and a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to save and possibly reuse the building and the tracks. I think it's one of those things that we will always look back on and be grateful that we put the effort forth to do it. And we need to do that. We've lost our gym, and probably at least weekly, I have someone comment as to, oh, isn't it a shame we lost the gym? And my feeling is, yes, it is. It's too bad. And I firmly believe that if we had had social media in the day that we were trying to save that building, it would be saved. And it is essential that everyone who cares about this project and who has a dream, who has a commitment, who has expertise, who has a voice and is in favor of this, to speak out and join the group to make this a reality for Shelton. And I would like to also point out that already, just on the strength of the possibility and the potential for that, it is creating economic development, in that the owner of the Mason Hotel is planning to, in a few years, put a boutique hotel at the top of that building because of its proximity to the Roundhouse, and assuming that people will be coming and staying and visiting the museum there, and possibly working on whatever type of exhibits that we have in the case that we are successful in getting a working museum. So I think that we have to not be afraid, and we have to make a stand, and we have to move forward with this in however way that we can. And I do appreciate all of the passion and all of the people that are helping from across the states, from everyone who is passionate and sees the vision of this. And so obviously this particular commissioner is very committed to this process. I will say that in the last week too, I've had a long conversation with Dan Griffey, who's very much a supporter of this as well. I will be calling our other electeds and talking with them to get more commitment, so that we have that commitment. So that's my statement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the report,
All right.
Steve.
So for the people that want to speak on this, all we have to do is sign up. And if you signed up, then we'll just call your name and we'll give you 3 minutes each to talk. So do we have a list of names?
We do. And
Okay.
first is Mr. Josh Cabo. Cabo.
And just state your name for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Josh Kaivo. I am the former Simpson Railroad mechanic. I was the last one in the Roundhouse. I was actually there last week working with the Western Washington Railroad on preparing the 1202 for shipment down to Chehalis for continued use on their railroad. I agree with what the mayor states, that this is probably not something that the city could take on by themselves. But as a facilitator, if they were to acquire the right-of-ways, existing Simpson rails, the Roundhouse, we could work with Sierra Pacific and Simpson on reacquiring the rolling stock, which has not been sold off yet. Obviously, some of the pieces of equipment have been sold off. And I would just like to say we do have some very interested individuals, railroad preservationists, professional businessmen, people from any other walks of life that are interested in banding together with either a nonprofit or possibly a for-profit corporation. We haven't quite decided how that would work, but we are interested in spearheading any efforts to get this project going and in the right direction. Again, I think we've touched base on this as a very, very important economic tool that could be had by the city here. And yeah, just like I say, I think we could make this work. If we had a nonprofit or even a for-profit organization that could become self-sustaining, we could solicit investors, we could solicit donations, write grants, that type of thing. It could become its own entity that would be self-sustaining as well as supporting to the economy. And that's about all I have to say for the evening. If you have any other questions or comments for me.
Just thank you for coming and speaking speaking what you've said, so.
So, the old saying, it takes a village to raise a child. So the child is that, and the village is Shelton and all the around cities that want to participate in this. Very good.
Yes.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Next?
I don't have anyone else to.
Oh, really?
Signed up to speak on this
I
item.
wanted to hear everybody in the room speak. So, yeah, I would love to hear from anybody else. If you're like railroads, if you think it's a good idea, if you think there's a shot at it. I mean, we have sometimes 2 or 3 hour meetings, and if that's what we're going to do tonight, then so be it. So if you come up, you just have to sign in right at that corner there, and then what we'll do is speak, say your name for the record, and this is public comment, and you've all come, and we want to hear from anybody who wants to say anything about this.
While we're waiting, I will just make one more comment that I neglected to say, is that I had a long conversation as well with Dave McEntee, who is with Simpson, and he has pledged Simpson support as a partner if we're able to put a reasonable plan together. So I think that's extremely valuable that they are rooting for us, and so there's another great voice of experience for this project.
Absolutely. Did you already sign? You go ahead and come in and then just state your name for the record, please.
Marilyn Ward. I came tonight for this issue because I'm really excited about it. I think that it would be a really wonderful thing for Shelton to draw people here. And I just want to say, I didn't hear everything you said about Simpson, but I was going to ask if they were going to help with it or donate anything, you know, as far as that might help get it started. And also, I have a brother who's a general manager of a railroad in San Diego, and he goes to Ventura and all over the country. So I'm going to be contacting him and seeing if he could help in any way, his railroad. Because I know they have one that runs up here also, but I'm not quite sure where it is. But I'm gonna
Wonderful. Thank
yeah.
you.
You're welcome. But I hope it gets done.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Just state your name for the record, please.
My name is Russell Holter, and in the interest of full disclosure, I have to start off by saying that I work for the state of Washington, but I'm here as a private citizen, and I do work for a regulatory agency, which is the Department of Archaeology and Historic Preservation. And then my comments should be construed as being part of any regulatory process, whether it be state or federal. But I'm here to voice my support for the city, working in conjunction with any private entities who wish to take on this rather daunting undertaking. But I would like to challenge the commission to make no small plans. I know that there are some people out there that might think that having another heritage railroad in the state of Washington might actually diminish the value of tourism in the area, but I will tell you that that is false. It could only augment it and make all the other heritage railroads stronger. If this is done correctly, it's something I'm rather passionate about. I can tell you that other grassroots organizations have been successful. The Cascade Rail Foundation, which I was personally involved with, they raised $900,000 for the rehabilitation of the train station in South Cle Elum, Washington, which has a population of 250. Okay, you're not too small to take this on. But if you're going to take this on, you need to be working together symbiotically. The Cascade Rail Foundation did not do what they did without the help of Washington State Parks, who was the agency which owned the property and were the stewards of the group, the nonprofit organization that did all the work. So it needs, you guys need to work together to be able to pull this off. And if you try to make this project too small, I think that it could be doomed to fail from the get-go. So if you make large plans, you can always scale back. If you make small plans, it's almost impossible to grow it from that point on. And that's just a cautionary tale that I just wanted to bring before the commission today. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to be able to come down here and be able to voice this in a public forum.
Thank you very
Thank
much for
you.
your comments. Anybody else? There's opportunities, 2 other opportunities in this meeting for general public comment on any subject. So if you feel that you want to say something later, and it's going to be a fairly short meeting tonight, I think you can certainly add to this story. Next, I will go into our weekly commission reports, and we'll start with Commissioner Moore.
Okay, well, it was a great grand opening of our Lake Boulevard Pioneer Way project, and I am so pleased. It's such an exciting day to have that huge road project finished. It's gorgeous. I'm excited that my grandchildren will have a safe way to school now. Wednesday, I will be meeting with United Way and the group that is working on the United Way project for Day of Caring this year, which is a Cleanup Shelton Day, which is going to be amazing. And so we're in the planning stages for that, in the process of getting addresses and projects that we can incorporate into that so that we can make a real visible difference on Day of Caring. And that's my week.
Thank you.
Last Thursday, I attended a budget and finance conference in Tukwila. It's very interesting. Cities are all in the same pickle, and they're all trying to figure out how to meet their financial obligations, and they had some great ideas. I won't go into them now, but if anyone wants to know, I'd be glad to share it with them. Today, I attended the ribbon cutting, and it was very exciting to see that brand new road and flashing lights and crosswalks and all sorts of sidewalks and LED lights. So I'm just really excited about that. I have my left board meeting tomorrow at 8 a.m. That's the law enforcement officers and firefighters. We manage the pension plans for the city and county retired officers and firefighters. And I want to personally welcome Ryan. Thank you.
And who is Ryan?
Oh, our new administrator. I'm sorry. I know who he is.
Yeah, you got to share that with the
I'm
public.
sorry. I personally like to welcome Ryan Wheaton, our new city administrator. We're excited to
Yeah,
have
we
you
can
on
clap for
board.
Ryan. That's okay on that one. It's a positive clap for a gentleman coming to take a job, do a job, and we will miss Pete. Pete's going to be around for a little while longer, but Pete has been our interim and done an excellent job in the absence of Dave O'Leary, our past city administrator. So just a little political education here on what we're doing. So, okay, well, this week I did attend that grand opening or the ribbon cutting ceremony for the Lake Boulevard Highway, and I'm sure that anyone who lives out that road is very thankful that we did what we did. And so it's been on our books for a long, long time. Thursday, I will be talking to Maya Bellin, who is the director of the Department of Ecology. And Ryan and Pete will be with me. We have a lobbyist from the Association of Washington Cities that'll be there. Senator Tim Sheldon will be there. And a mayor from fellow Washington will be there. And what we are doing is, a couple of years ago, the city of Shelton started a sewer funding coalition of other cities that were facing extreme debt concerning to the cost of new sewage treatment plants and basin projects. And by building that group up now, and we have then turned this over to the Association of Washington Cities, and so we are getting prepared for the legislative session that's coming up, and our conversation with Maya Bellin will be primarily to see how we can interact with her and help her to achieve her agendas for restoring funding to the Centennial Clean Water Fund, which is a major funding source for small rural communities to get money to help them on their basin projects and sewage treatment plant projects. So we'll be primarily talking about what the agendas will be for the Sewer Funding Coalition in the next legislative session. But I will also be making a plea to her on getting additional grant funding for our last major basin, which is Basin 3. And so this year we're going to do a big push to see if we can't get more money so that the ratepayers can experience a little relief in their obligations to build all of these things. So that's our Thursday meeting with the Department of Ecology, and that completes our commission weekly reports. And again, if people want to speak, there's a couple other opportunities for general public comment. One of them is now. So here is another general public comment period for anyone who wants to speak about anything other than, actually it doesn't matter, I can speak about anything, but if nobody's rushing up to sign up, we'll move forward.
I have a Mr. Forrest Cooper.
Okay.
And I have one more thing to say before Mr. Forrest Cooper comes up, is that there was a resident that came down and watched the ribbon cutting today, and she wanted me to be sure and tell the Public Works Department and whoever else worked on that road that it was worth the wait. And it's beautiful, and she's excited that she can walk on the sidewalks all over the place, and she doesn't have to feel like it's going to be a danger. And she's an older lady, so she's thumbs up to you guys. It's beautiful.
All right, Mr. Cooper.
Thank you very much, Commission. I'm Forrest Cooper, 409 West Railroad and 807 South 14th Street. Critique. What does that word mean to you? A few weeks back, I made a statement at a commission meeting and afterwards received a comment from a city staffer. Forrest, I liked your statement, until the negative part. I'd like to offer my experience to help you better understand my commitment to the public comment portion of our city commission meetings. My wife Amy and I met in college pursuing bachelor degrees in visual communications with majors in graphic design and fine art. Throughout our education, we participated and were subjected to numerous critiques. We were taught how to constructively critique someone else's work and also, as difficult as it was at times, receive constructive criticism on our own works of art. This developed many skills that range from communicating positive ideas to another artist to defending a creative decision that was grounded in strong emotion and well thought out intent. To give you an idea of how much time we spent on this, the normal critique would last about 4 hours and only contain maybe 10 works of art from other classmates. This skill, combined with numerous studies in psychology and self-awareness, has helped Amy and I to hone the skills necessary to not only move forward with our own endeavors, but to also offer constructive criticism to fellow colleagues. So to the advice from several city staffers to keep all comments positive, although positive reinforcement is great, constructive criticism can sometimes be more helpful and in some cases aid to avoid failure or disaster. After the previously mentioned commission meeting, while chatting with Amy over dinner, she pointed out my level of critique might be received as negative comments and not constructive criticism. Bingo! It all made sense. My wife knows best. So tonight I'm here to explain that I have a great love and appreciation for this city and its staff and will continue to offer constructive criticism to not only help the city succeed, but to offer the perspective of a Shelton business owner, building owner, homeowner, ratepayer, sales tax generator, volunteer, artist, friend, and neighbor. I offer help and criticism to the city the same way as I would to a fellow artist, with the intent on helping to achieve success, not failure. Thank you so much and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
I have a Mr. Joel Hawthorne.
All right.
Joel Hawthorne from Shelton. And I just wanted to bring up, I don't think it's been brought up yet, but another method of income that a railroad could be used to bring in is car storage. And Josh mentioned earlier the Western Washington Railroad. That's one of their main sources of income. A railroad is not always moving cars, but cars that aren't used need to be stored somewhere, and clients will pay to have them stored on unused trackage. I just wanted to bring that
Hey,
up.
thank you for the idea. Anyone else?
That's it for this.
All right, we have another opportunity later in the meeting for any other comments. So, at this point, are we ready for a reading of the consent agenda?
Yes.
Yes.
Could we please have a reading of the consent agenda?
Consent agenda, vouchers numbered 12173 through 12273 in the amount of $746,144. Commission meeting minutes from business meeting of July 18th, 2016, and study session of July 25th, 2016.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I will move to accept consent agenda.
I'll second that motion.
There's a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The agenda passes. Next item is, I think our only major item here is under old business, and we're going to talk about something we've been talking about, and that's some well options. So I'd like to turn the meeting over to our Public Works Director, Greg Clark, at this time.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. Once again, we're talking about well options, and we did some more research on operational opportunities to save some money, and the briefing report goes through that a little bit. We, of course, talked about a variety of options on July 5th, and then on July 18th, we kind of distilled that down to 3 options, one being to look at this year's possible dry season, and just coming in and lowering the pump 42 feet to get more head above the existing pump. The commission challenged us to go back and even look further as to how we might be able to save even that amount of money and apply it towards the reconditioning of the well. And so we did that. I went back and talked at length with my crew, and we actually came up with some really good ideas that hopefully will be received tonight, and how we might be able to eliminate option 1, the expenditure of the $20,000. One of the problems we've had is well 1 is our number 1 pump, and it's always been in the first position. So when the storage tanks call for water to fill them up again, well 1 has been the well of choice. And as that well pump kicks on, and because of the aging of the casing and the fact that it needs to be cleaned, we feel that, well, the concern is that the drawdown within the casing, when the well kicks on, the water above the head of the pump is about 25 feet at rest. And as soon as the pump kicks on, it draws it down to right around 15 feet above the pump. And then as it continues to pump longer and longer, about an hour and 50 minutes worth of pumping, it's right down below 10 feet, which is of grave concern because it possibly could cause cavitation and actually burn out the pump, which would be a really bad thing to do. So we went back and talked at length to Arcadia Well Drilling and to our SCADA consultant regarding what could be done, and a discussion of why don't we install a monitoring method by which we can monitor this drawdown so that we don't have to have somebody physically up there to look at the gauge. And we actually implemented that and took care of that last week. It cost us about $3,500 to do that. It'll provide us good information not only now but way on into the future. But it allows us to tie that into our SCADA system. So once the water level now above the head of the pump reaches 9 feet, we can shut it off and let it rest until it reaches 20 feet for at least 15 minutes, at which point we could turn it back on. The other thing we did is we took well 1 out of first position for the call for water, and we put well 3 and well 4 ahead of it. So well 3 and well 4 are now our lead pumps. Well 1, being the one we need to recondition, can be in third position. So if we do have an extreme draw for water in the downtown or a Capitol Hill area or whatever, we can pull well one onto the system, but it'll come on third. Anyway, that we feel pretty comfortable in delaying the, well, we just wouldn't need to lower the pump 42 feet as our initial plan was. We could take that money, apply it towards the reconditioning of the well one, which was the second option, which was for about $195,000. We felt we could recondition that pump based on the estimates we've had. And we hope and pray that that will be the case. We can recondition the well. Of course, we won't know until we pull the pump and TV it and all that, but it's our belief and from the experts that do this all the time that this is a very desirable thing to do and should work. They don't see any reason why it won't. But the other thing, the option 3 that we produced information on was the extension of a pipe, a pressure line from well 1 out, connecting it into well 3 to provide redundancy for Upper Mountain View pressure zone as a supply. So those were the 3 options, and staff at this point would recommend that we not do option 1, that we, as brought it forward tonight, just allow the changes that we've made in operations to cover this summer. We also are looking into a water conservation possibility that we can I forget the buzzword for it, water storage response plan, that should we end up in a difficult situation, that we have tools in place by which we can reduce consumption rather swiftly within the town, possibly alternate day watering, that kind of thing. But we would like to see the commission move forward with option 2 and option 3. So I'll be happy to answer any questions at this point.
First, and we've kind of set this up as, this is an action item, so we have the opportunity for any public comment on this action item. And so if anyone would like to speak, we'll have you speak first, then we can talk about what we want to do and probably make a decision on this. So if anyone has anything they want to say about this well, now would be the opportunity. If not, we will talk about how we feel about it and what we want to do. So all you have to do is come forward, sign in at the table where Leslie Ann, I believe, is sitting, and then
And I have a
we
Mr.
will-
Toby Kevin.
Okay, well, maybe Toby, Kevin, you would like to come and speak now while these fine people are getting ready to talk.
My name is Toby Kevin. I live at 709 Terrace View Drive and do business at 218 North 3rd. Commissioners, staff, first, I really have, I think, been on record about this before, and I don't want to bore anybody by repeating everything. A couple of things have come out in the discussion over the weeks and months that I would like to comment on. I think we all know that
This would be just about the well, this comment. You can speak at the next general public comment. If it's about the well, that is the
I'm
opportunity.
getting to the point.
If it is about the well, then now.
I'm getting to the point.
Okay, as long as it's well, that's fine.
In the discussions about the well and this project, things that I have heard in this room and elsewhere involve discussion of the high water and sewer rates. It's been pointed out that even fixing the well now, borrowing the essentially free money from the state, would not raise the near-term water and sewer rates, and I just wanted to repeat that for the record. The other issue that's been raised in connection with the debt, with the project, was the level of debt, long-term debt, that the city of Shelton has. And I simply wanted to say thanks to Pete Butkus for publishing a memo that clarified it and made it clear what the number is. And that's my comments.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Marilyn Vogler?
Marilyn Vogler, 420 East Poplar. There are a lot of issues with the well that have to do with judgment calls and philosophies about spending money. The one I want to speak about, though, was brought up at the last discussion of this, and that would be the impact of expanding our urban growth area on demands for water service. I spoke briefly with staff about this and learned that it's not an immediate demand, but once you enlarge the urban growth area, and I think I have this right, you then have to go back to your strategic plan, your long-term plan for your water system, and take that into account and revise then plans for developing adequate water supply. I noticed that the ordinance for UGA expansion is on the agenda in October. And I would simply urge you, before you make a decision on the urban growth area, I would urge that you understand the implications that would have for the water system. Now, I tend to be frugal in my own spending, but I also know the value of making investments when the deal is good. And it seems to me that a 1% loan is a good deal. Expecting at some point in the not too distant future, we will need this piping system, this option 3, to provide adequate supply either for current development issues or for this expanded UGA. I would urge you to go ahead and spend the money. But if you're not inclined to make that decision tonight, I really urge you to know what it will do to future plans to expand the urban growth area before you make that decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Mr. John Tarrant.
John Tarrant, 167 Hawthorne, P.O. Box 2172, Shelton. Just a couple comments. I realize the decision has discussed this issue at multiple meetings and have actually focused on this particular option this evening. I'm one of those that goes by the perlator oil filter mode, pay me now or pay me a whole lot more later. With respect to this process, if it's immediate, it may make sense, but my concern would be that long-range planning in terms of where are we going to be X number of years from now. And the fact that we're looking at a well that is 72 years old, thereabouts, and quite frankly, I think it's time to consider drilling a new well and to provide more capacity for that potential in the urban growth area. That 1% loan sounds awfully good. In fact, if it's in the rates already. I, for one, don't like paying a lot more, but quite frankly, I don't want to pay twice.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Mr. Tom Davis.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. Tom Davis. As you know, I do not live in the city, although I do have rental property in the city. A few years ago, when my wife and I built a house out there in the county, and we had a storm and the electricity went off, and of course, after our pressure tank was exhausted, we had no water. And instinctively, maybe 20 times during the day, I'd walk over to the sink, I'd turn the faucet, and I was surprised there's no water. You'd think you'd learn after 4 or 5 times. But that's the power that we have, that water has in our lives. We take it for granted. Now that's the way it affects us personally. After the 3rd day, we got kind of used to that, and we emptied the hot water tank, and we found other areas where we could conserve and use water. But that's not the case, economically speaking, and Marilyn touched on this, and I'd like to just expand upon it a little bit. Perception sometimes is the better part of reality. And the perception of the business community, which we're trying to entertain here in Shelton, which we talk nonstop about bringing in business and having our economy get a little bit of a boost. When we have these discussions and we're talking about the cheap fix, we're talking about the temporary fix, that doesn't encourage business to come in and lay down hard-earned capital for long-term investments with a short-term future. What happens is that they look, people, as you know, you're a businessman also, Mr. Mayor, they look at the long-term resources. They look at the infrastructure. The infrastructure of any city is the foundation on which growth is built. When you jeopardize that, when you short-circuit it, when you take the cheap or shortcut method out of that, you undermine that. You undermine the economic growth, the same economic growth that you so desperately need. So my suggestion is Get in front of the curve on this one. Bite the bullet on this one. Do it the way it's supposed to be done this time. We're in this situation because so many leaders prior to your sitting in that seat have kicked this can down the road, and we, in fact, we are the sons paying this for the sins of our father. I have a rental property here. I have not raised the rent in 4 years. I simply let the tenant absorb the cost of the water increases and so on. I'm willing to have that happen because there's a greater good at stake here. And the greater good is the community and the vision of the community to have some economic growth. It's not a matter of talking about it. It's a matter of making these very difficult, hard, unpopular decisions to get the action done so we have a future in Shelton. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
That's it.
All right, so now we're going to make a decision, and we're going to talk about this. And if Commissioner McDowell or Commissioner Moore would like to speak first, we can do that.
Well, let me go first.
Sure.
I'll be glad to. I've been investigating, studying this issue, talking with a lot of people about these different options. Option one is not, according to my opinion, is not there, and we just take option one off. We go with option two, we have a good chance of making this work, and will carry us over for a few years. Are we going to have economic development in the city? Hope so. So we have to look at that. I am willing to look at, I don't think we need to look at option three for the fact that we have the 1% loan till the end of March of 2018. Is that right?
That's correct.
Right. So we have some time there to, we have some money to fluctuate there. If we do have to go borrow that money, then we can. But the piping up to, the water pipes up to the upper pressure Mountain View zone, I think can wait a few more weeks until we get a little more information on the necessity of that right now. But that's how I'm going with what I feel.
Okay.
I thought that the projects had to be completed by 2018.
Yeah, for clarification, the projects need to be physically done by March of 18, and there is certainly lead time in order to get a project bid and a contractor on board and the project built, and it depends on what we're building. If it's just a water line for about 2,000 feet, that's one thing. If it's a larger project like a tank or something like that, it's certainly going to take more lead time than that. So to answer your question, Tracy, yes,
We're on a time
we're on a time frame where, depending on the size of the project, we need to move fairly soon. But the piping could certainly wait. That's not a problem.
Typically, when you do a big project, it costs more if you piecemeal it. Is that correct? Or if you can bid the whole project in the beginning, your prices tend to go a little better for the bids?
There's economy of scale, definitely.
Okay. So we know that we need the pressure zone. We know that we have a limited time to take advantage of the 1% loan. We know that we have a requirement to get the pressure out to State Patrol and out to that end of the line. So I don't see any advantage to waiting. I think that we need to do this right now while we have the 1% loan so that we are able to take care of our agreements and so that we are able to meet our commitments and do the best thing for the city so that we don't have this hanging over our heads and be faced with maybe dire consequences. So I totally believe that we need to do option 2, option 3, and we have had, the experts have spoken, everybody's spoken, you guys have done a great job of getting those costs down there. This isn't a new well, but if this is the method we can all agree on, then I would be happy with that.
Okay. You wanted to?
Yeah, I just had one more question. How long If we decided to go with running the water line out, how long does that take?
We have an existing contractor on board right now. The $400,000 for option 3 is to utilize the existing bid we have and just amend his contract to include this new work. If we have to go out and put another bid package on the street, advertise, select a contractor, and that, it's going to be more expensive than the $400,000. That just, because we have to put it out to bid again. But the $400,000 is a very good number right now, based on the length of the line and the fact that we have a contractor that we could do a change order and move forward on. But
Is there a date on that contract is up?
It's all dependent on their schedule, and right now I would have to estimate based on the progress they've had, the work that's left that's done. We've probably got until about the end of September at the very latest to be able to take advantage of those existing contracts.
So how long, once you start the project, the actual physical project of laying the water line, how long is that project?
The contractor we currently have under contract, based on the length of pipeline he's already done and the similarities between this, it's probably about a 2 to 3 month piece of work for them to do.
So I just have one more question, and it went out my mind.
You can,
Gosh, I'll think of it later.
just a couple points of clarification. Number one is we are all voted in as commissioners to serve the ratepayers in this city. And I've been on this journey for 10 years. Okay? And the general way that you do these things is the government comes with a low-interest loan, and you do it, and you keep plugging away at these infrastructure projects, and you complete one, you do another, and you complete one, you do another. And then after a while, unless business catches up to you, low-interest loans are just like high-interest loans. You still have to pay the payment on a low-interest loan. And what happens is we have built up a beautiful infrastructure. Nobody's denying that. And we are continuing to build infrastructure. But what happens is business is not caught up to us yet. And so the ratepayers are paying the bills for a $50 to $60 million debt service without the help of the new businesses coming in. That's the truth. That's reality. And so it has been my mission to attempt to put some sort of stop measures on continually having a habit of borrowing more money, and saying, build it and they will come. That works in some cases. I've talked to cities where they built a brand new plant or they did something, all of a sudden business came in and caught up with them and everything was beautiful. But to borrow money just for the sake of borrowing money, had I and Kathy McDowell not said, just a second, $1.3 million, we want to look really close at this, we wouldn't be having this discussion. It would have been $1.3 million. We would have had a new mill. Well, we would have this line run and everything was fine and all that stuff. But I have to do what I said to the ratepayers. And I have to ask these questions. And this is not a cheap fix. This is not a temporary thing. They rebuild that well, put $200,000 into it. That well is not going to go dry in 2 or 3 years, is it? Why would the experts say that you can fix that well rather than drill a new well if it was going to go dry in 2 or 3 years? This is not a cheap fix. This is not a temporary move, okay? So as long as I'm mayor of this city, I will question every single million or multi-million-dollar loan. And if I can find an opportunity to do an adequate job for a little less until business catches up to our infrastructure, which unfortunately it hasn't yet. I don't have any signed contracts for certain projects that we've been planning to for years and years. This city is literally drowning under the payments of low-interest loans. Well, that's the facts, okay? And I will not continue to borrow millions of dollars of loans to do things, and I haven't. And as long as I'm here, I will vote against that until business catches up with infrastructure. It's the old thing. Live within your means, folks. And this is a great example. I think we're going to have a good well for $200,000 instead of $1.3 million. That line, that 400 feet of line, or whatever it is, $400,000 line, we can do that at any time we want to do that. Okay? And pressure by using arguments like, well, if you do it later, it's going to cost more money, and you can't, all that stuff, we've been hearing it forever. And I'm just telling you, I represent the ratepayers, and I will not continue to do things that are going to keep pushing their rates up until we get other people to come and help along. So my suggestion is, thank you for the $3,500 option on the well number 1. Thank you for putting 2 and 3 before it. Good measures. I will easily support a $195,000 restoration of the existing well that was recommended to us by experts, and I would be happy to do that. And so, but I will not pay for a $400,000 line right now because we just lost mills, and we are not in an economic situation where I want to borrow more money. I mean, that's my story, and I'm happy to say that. Can you just one second?
Okay.
So that's my story, and I have no problem in saying that. I'm happy to say that, and I'm happy to know that there is a large number of people, believe it or not, in this community. They're very thankful that we are looking at every one of these loans and that we are not just saying yes to all this stuff. So that concludes my comments on this issue. Now, Commissioner Moore.
Thank you for that. Okay, so I would like to say right now, I am on the board of the Mason Transit Authority, and we have some retail spaces over at the Transit Center. We had 4 national franchises that were interested in coming here, and the reason that they gave for not coming is concerns about the water, and also concerns that for the debt, the city debt, because it had been promoted as that Shelton was on the verge of bankruptcy because of the debt, which is an extreme fallacy, because why would they keep trying to give us money and offering us money if they thought we were not going to repay our loans or that we could not afford it? We have a good debt ratio. So those are 2 things that's not really working for me. This water issue is keeping economic development out of our community because the people want to be sure that they are going to have water and they are willing to pay to come here if they have a community that is willing to grow and to succeed and to prosper. But they're not willing to come here with their money to give us the money and say, oh, let us help you prosper. We have to be strong. So, okay, I had one question. What happens if we don't meet the requirements that we agreed to get the pressurized system out to the State Patrol?
Well, they certainly would, we signed an agreement back, 2010 with the partners on that particular. I'm not sure what the ramifications of not fulfilling our end of the agreement. I mean, we'd have to enter into discussions with them and find out what the ramifications would be. I don't know if the agreement or not has specific non-compliance measures in it or not. So I really can't answer your question, Tracy.
Okay, so State Patrol took a grant from the state, right? And then the city agreed to do their part, and we were given grant and loan money to fulfill our obligations. So at this point, we're looking at not fulfilling our obligations if we don't do this pressurized line.
This was before my time.
It was before mine as well.
Steve, could you elaborate a little more clear? You were here when this all came down. Sorry, put you on the spot.
I'll try to articulate this. We had a regional plan with the Department of Corrections, State Patrol, and initially the Port of Shelton for the regional project. The vision and how that project moved forward changed over time. We landed on a 4-phase project, and a portion of that was the water line extension. A portion of that was the satellite facility. A portion of that was upgrades to our downtown plant to accommodate more capacity. The structure of that agreement changed over time. There was a period of time where some capital funds were identified that were granted to the State Patrol for their share of the regional plan costs. There was a window of time where we had to complete those elements, or the legislature was going to reappropriate those funds for different purposes. At that point, we had to restructure the regional partnership, and a lot of the improvements were funded by our partners, in part because they had this money they had to use, and the portions that were left for the city to build are mainly the portion before us now. I don't know if Michael wants to add to that or not, but our portion became these latter phases, building these mainly the tanks for storage needs for the Upper Mountain View pressure zone and the other elements of the part of the phasing plan that we've been talking about for some time.
Okay, thank you. So basically, our reputation is on the line. Even if we're not fined, it doesn't look good. Okay, and then the other question that I had is, I am concerned, and I was actually unaware about the water requirements and the expansion of the urban growth area. So once again, we're looking at economic development restrictions if we don't go forward with this.
On that item, we are doing a analysis of what impacts that would have to our utilities for these proposed expansions. That will be part of the consideration of our comprehensive plan update. We are required to forecast in a 20-year horizon what effects that might have and provide some planning level estimates of what those costs are. More specifically, we plan out for 6 years in a more detailed fashion, so we know in the near term what those effects might be. I should add, in the case of the one of the areas that is proposed for expansion in the urban growth area, we are anticipating that development will occur at the tail end of that 20-year horizon. So in the next 10 to 15 years, that particular area we don't anticipate will have a great effect on these utilities, because that area probably will not become ripe for development until the tail end of that 20-year horizon.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, I thought of the question.
Okay.
Are you done, Tracy?
Yes.
Can we wait a few more weeks on the water pipeline to the Upper Mountain View pressure zone?
Commissioners, it's your choice.
No, but is it possible? We're not.
Oh,
gonna-
absolutely.
Okay.
There wouldn't be a problem delaying
So
this for a
little
few weeks.
more information that I would like to receive, and some questions I would like to know. I would like to do that. I'm for number 2, going with that. We can always come back and change if we have to.
All right. It looks like we are getting close to making a decision on this. We just had that. You can talk on a general item after we're done. We have another opportunity under general public comment. Okay, so at this point, we've asked our questions, and it appears that we need a motion to choose our best option. So I would entertain a motion.
I think that Commissioner McDowell just asked to put off the decision for...
Well,
Not for the drilling or the refurbishing of this well.
No, what I'm asking is that I want to go with 2, but we still have some time in the next few weeks to add on number 3 if we need to. So that's what I would like.
So you're prepared to make
I
a
am
motion
prepared to make a motion.
concerning the refurbishing of well number 1?
Yes, I make a motion to go with option 2, the refurbishing of the well. Do I need to say any more on that?
I would appreciate something in the motion saying that we will make a decision on option 3.
Okay, so let me start over. I want to make a motion that we move to make a motion on the adoption of number 2 with the option to come back in a few weeks and adopt 3 if we need to.
I'll second that motion.
There's a motion and a second. for the option number 2 with an amendment, a caveat, to revisit the $400,000 water line in approximately 2 weeks. Staff can come back with even better, maybe more information on exactly how that all fits into this. But I think we are all in agreement on starting the process of fixing well number 1. If that's what your motion is.
This is my motion.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. There is no new business tonight, but we do have a city administrator, and we have an opportunity for a administration report. Okay, now we have another general public comment. So if you would like to come, just sign your name in. You've already signed, John, so you can just.
I did want to make sure that I didn't waste any more of my 3 minutes. I want to sign up again.
No, John, I used to do this to you, and I know you hated it when I did this, so I'm going to be a lot more.
So you're annotating what I have to say, right?
You can talk first if you want, or you can,
Whatever order it's in.
all right. You want to go first? Okay.
Thank you once again, Commission, Mayor, Forrest Cooper, 409 West Railroad and 807 South 14th. I was getting those mixed up. Anyways, I just wanted to say something very brief. I wanted to say thank you very much to Pete Butkus. He has been an amazing interim administrator. He could have came into this position just trying to keep things afloat while he was here. Instead, he really went above and beyond to not only communicate with you guys, but also with the interested members of the public like myself. I've had some great one-on-one conversations with Pete. I really appreciate everything you've done, Pete. And Ryan, I welcome you. Thank you so much, you guys.
Thank you. Just state your name for the record, please.
Name is John Tarrant, 167 Hawthorne. First of all, again, kudos to Mr. Butkus for your efforts. It's been great for the city. And just to kind of bring comments back to the issue of the water issue. I know a lot of conversation has taken place in the last now 5 years, almost 4.5, about debt. But I'd like to just give you a short little history about where we were when I took office. We had a lot of folks telling us we were going to be in perpetual moratorium and we would end up having environmental problems continually. A lot of the stuff was by the fact the state put us under the gun. We went ahead as a commission and did some of those things, knowing full well what the impact was going to be on our ratepayers. But quite frankly, I'm proud to say, even though I know, Mr. Mayor, that you probably think I'm saddled you with a lot of problems, I think that had we not done what we did then, you'd have even more problems now. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Bill Busaka.
Just
Bill
state-
Busaka, 612
Thank
West
you.
Birch Street. Go ahead, sorry, Mayor Cron.
That's all, I just meant state your name for the record.
Yeah, Bill Busaka, 612 West Birch Street. I have the fortune of having family in other parts of the country and to be able to, having been on trips to talk to people in other parts of the country. And Mayor Krantz, I realize that you are concerned about ratepayers and you do want to keep things under control, but we're in a real dilemma here because the timber industry is a mere shadow of its former self, and there's nothing we can do about that. The reality is we're going to have 10% of the employment we once had when I first moved here 42 years ago. So the chance that a Samsung assembly plant or a Hyundai plant comes here is a mere Tim Sheldon fantasy. It's not going to happen. They're all going to Georgia, South Carolina, and Alabama because they don't have any minimum wages and they don't pay benefits. So none of those places are coming here. Our only chance to really make something out of this town is we have an absolutely wonderful place to live. Mountains and water and whatever else. This is like a resort, just about. There are tens of thousands of people in San Diego, LA, Sacramento, Portland, Seattle. They want to get the hell out. You go try driving on the LA freeway sometimes. I mean to tell you, when somebody turns on their turn signal, you better be ready to get the devil out of the way because they're coming over. And people are tired of that. And from talking to even a man that lives in Asheville, North Carolina, small, nice, comfortable towns, pleasant, crime-free towns, people are just flocking to them from the big cities. and they pay cash for the houses. So here's how your ratepayers are going to get helped. Because when people come here as an urban growth area that's a pleasant place to live, that will spread out the costs of infrastructure among all the new residents here. It will attract businesses here. So you're caught between a rock and a hard place. If you over worry about the ratepayers, these people from these other urban areas are going somewhere else. They're going to Port Townsend. They're going to Silverton, Oregon. They're going to Gig Harbor. They're going somewhere, but they're not coming here. So at some point, we've got to present a front that we want those people to come here, because it will actually, I watched, when housing values went down after 2008, I was dumb enough to build my house in 2005. Yeah, my value of my house went way down, but the mill rate went up, and so I'm still paying the same taxes. Swing and deal. So the thing is that when there are more houses around and more people, that means there are more people to cover the costs. And therefore, I think that in this case, I think we need to swallow hard, fix the $400,000. We need to make people that are coming to this area look like it's someplace they want to come to. You should see what housing values are in even Thurston County, Pierce County, King County. We're way behind the curve on home values here, and it will go way up if we attract people.
Thank you for your comments. Is that it? I'll make a final comment. I want to thank everyone that came out tonight, and I want to thank everybody for their comments, because we are in a community, and there is not one doubt in my mind at all about all of our desire to make this a better place and to work together to do it. Through civility, we're going to do it. But because somebody might not agree with somebody else on an issue, folks, if we're going to do this, we're going to work together to do this without attacking one another. And I thought it was a real civil meeting tonight. So, except for Pete Buckus, I thought he was out of line. But just kidding. Don't report that, please. So, anyway, so I just want to say thank you for a civil meeting tonight. Now, Pete, is your opportunity.
Mr. Mayor, a couple of comments here to the commission and the public assembled. The water supply issue has been long and drawn out, but it's developed better options, I think, for the commissioners to make considerate decisions about. I recognize that to the public, all of you, no matter what side of the issue you're on, that's sometimes frustrating to have this continued. But what's happened is we've continued this, we've gotten additional information. Frankly, at this point, we're waiting for additional information from our regulatory partner, the State Department of Health, for some issues that they may want us to revise in our water system comprehensive plan based on changes that have been and possibly will be made by the Commission. It's a bit frustrating when it's a long time for those comments to come, just as the staff and myself are frustrated at the delay of the Department of Transportation of either giving us permission or saying we cannot do back-in angle parking on 2 blocks of Railroad Avenue. We are a creature of the state, we are created by the state, and we end up being subject to sometimes delays by the state in getting things done. So having said that, the positive aspects of this, I want to thank the Commission and all the members of the public I've worked with. It's been a wonderful 10 weeks here as your interim administrator. I'll still be hanging around. I do live in Mason County when I'm not off doing consulting jobs elsewhere. It's been some wonderful management challenges and some great people to work with, both elected and appointed. I just say thanks to the Commission for the opportunity to serve. And that's it, Mr. Mayor.
We can clap for Pete. There you go. Thank you, sir. And our new city administrator that's coming aboard, would you like a few minutes to say anything to the public at large?
I will have a lot to say in the future, I'm sure, but I just appreciate the opportunity and I'm excited to get started next week.
Thank you. All right, next on our agenda is final touches, administration final touches. Okay, none at this time. And our next meeting will be next Monday, August 8th at 2 p.m. in the afternoon.
Can I say something?
Well, absolutely. You can talk anytime you want.
Yeah. We have to remember, it's just not our water issue that's holding our city back. We have other issues in our city where people do not want to come in, bring their businesses or settle. So we need to remember it's just not the water issue, it's a combination of issues that we are working on to get our city up and running and a place that people want to come. Thank you.
And I will say that my biggest problem is that I grew up on the Beatles song Dear Prudence, and unfortunately, it just latched onto me so that I got it in every walk of my life. So, and Dear Prudence, prudence, you know, be prudent, like be
Oh,
careful,
yes.
don't spend too much money. Prudence.
That's right. Just,
Keep talking.
are you going to be here next week?
Items on the agenda next week.
Okay.
All right,
that was
so
it.
I already
Thank
adjourned
you.
the meeting. Those final comments were free. No one had to pay for them. Thank you very much for coming out.